The automatic doors of the Super Save grocery store whispered open, letting in a gust of cold Montreal air that made me pull my cardigan tighter. At 64, I'd grown accustomed to the chill that seemed to settle into my bones more easily these days. But I'd never quite adjusted to Canadian winters, even in October. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Mom, just grab a cart. I'll get the milk, my son Derek said, already moving toward the dairy section with the practiced efficiency of someone who knew exactly where everything was. He'd been living in Montreal for 7 years now, ever since he'd married Natalie, a perfectly polished woman who spoke French like a native and treated me with the kind of careful courtesy one reserves for elderly strangers. I wheeled my cart toward the produce section, admiring the neat pyramids of apples and the vibrant bunches of kale. The store was busy for a Tuesday afternoon, filled with the soft murmur of French and English conversations blending together. I was selecting tomatoes when I heard footsteps approaching rapidly. "Mrs. Collins!" I turned to see a young cashier hurrying toward me, her name tag reading, Sophie. She had a round, pleasant face and wore an expression of mild concern mixed with something else. Recognition that felt too familiar, too warm for a stranger. "Yes?" I said, offering a polite smile. "Back again?" She laughed, shaking her head. "Third time today. You must really love our store, or you're the most forgetful shopper we have." The tomato in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. I set it down carefully, my mind racing. "I'm sorry, dear, but this is my first time here. You must have me confused with someone else." Sophie's smile faltered. She tilted her head, studying my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "But you were just here 2 hours ago. You bought oranges and that expensive French cheese you always get. And before that, this morning, you—" "Sophie," Derek's voice cut through the air like a blade. He'd appeared at my elbow so quickly I nearly jumped. His face was pale, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "We need to go. Now." His hand gripped my elbow with surprising force. The milk he'd been holding thudded into our cart. "Derek, what on earth? Let's get out of here." His voice was low, urgent. He was already steering me toward the exit, abandoning our cart in the middle of the aisle. "But we haven't paid for—" "Forget it. We'll go somewhere else." I glanced back at Sophie, who stood frozen in confusion, watching us retreat. The automatic doors opened, and Derek practically pushed me through them into the parking lot. My heart was hammering now, not from exertion, but from the wild, unexplained panic in my son's eyes. "Derek Michael Collins, you tell me what's going on right this minute." I planted my feet on the cold pavement, refusing to move another step. 40 years of motherhood had taught me when to dig in my heels. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from his childhood whenever he'd been caught in a lie. "It's nothing, Mom." She was confused. "Let's just go to the other grocery store on Rue Saint-Denis." She knew my name. Lots of people shop there. She probably— Derek. I kept my voice level, but firm. "That girl said I'd been there 3 times today. She mentioned specific items. Expensive French cheese. She acted like she knew me." The color had drained completely from his face now. A passing car honked, and he flinched. "Can we please discuss this in the car? It's freezing out here." I let him guide me to his sleek black sedan, but my mind was churning. Something was desperately wrong. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, that maternal instinct that had never failed me when Derek was hiding something. We drove in silence for several minutes. I watched the Montreal streets slide past, the gray stone buildings, the colorful shop awnings, the pedestrians bundled in scarves and coats. Everything looked normal, ordinary, but nothing felt right. "There's a woman," Derek finally said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "She shops at that store. She looks like you." "Looks like me?" "Very much like you." He cleared his throat. "It's uncanny, actually. Natalie and I saw her a few months ago. We thought she might be a distant cousin or something. And you didn't think to mention this to me? In 3 days of visiting, you couldn't find time to say, 'By the way, Mom, there's someone in Montreal who could be your twin?'" He flinched at the word twin. I saw it clearly. The way his shoulders tensed, the quick intake of breath. "Derek, what aren't you telling me?" "Nothing. I just didn't want to worry you about some random woman who happens to have a similar appearance." It's probably just a coincidence. But I knew my son. I'd raised him alone after his father died when Derek was 12. I'd worked double shifts as a nurse to put him through college. I'd celebrated every achievement and weathered every disappointment with him. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that he was lying to me. "Take me back to your apartment," I said quietly. "Mom." Now Derek. The drive to their upscale apartment in Old Montreal passed in heavy silence. Natalie was out when we arrived, attending one of her endless charity luncheons. Their home always made me slightly uncomfortable with its minimalist furniture and abstract art that cost more than my annual property taxes back in Vermont. I went straight to the guest room where I'd been staying and retrieved my phone from my purse. My hands trembled slightly as I searched. "How to find someone who looks like you, Montreal." The results were predictably unhelpful. I tried different searches. Doppelganger Montreal, twins separated at birth, adoption records Vermont 1961. That last search made me pause. My mother had died a month earlier, and I'd never thought to question the sparse details she'd shared about my birth. I'd been born at home in rural Vermont, or so she'd always said. No hospital records. Just a home birth attended by a midwife whose name my mother claimed she couldn't remember. I'd never thought to doubt it. Why would I? But now, with Sophie's words echoing in my mind, third time today, doubt crept in like fog under a door. I heard Derek's voice in the hallway, speaking in rapid French on his phone. I couldn't make out most of the words, but I caught "elle sait" and "café." She knows. What to do. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the Canadian weather. I opened my laptop and began searching more systematically. Vermont birth records, 1961. Adoption agencies, missing persons. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I felt compelled to find it. An hour later, I'd found nothing concrete. But I had found something strange. My birth certificate, which I'd scanned years ago for passport purposes, looked off. The paper quality was wrong for 1961. The seal was faint, almost imperceptible. I'd never noticed before because I'd never had reason to look closely. A knock on the door made me jump. "Mom?" Derek's voice was soft, conciliatory. "Can we talk?" "Come in." He entered looking haggard, as though he'd aged a decade in the past few hours. He sat on the edge of the bed, not meeting my eyes. "I need to tell you something," he said, "but you have to promise to hear me out completely before you react." My heart began to race. "All right. The woman at the grocery store, her name is Marie Hansen." He took a deep breath. "Mom, she's not just someone who looks like you. We're almost certain she's your identical twin." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. "That's impossible," I whispered. "My mother would have—" "Your mother lied." His voice was gentle but firm. "We've known about Marie for 6 months. Natalie met her at a fundraiser. The resemblance was so striking that we started asking questions, doing research." 6 months? My voice rose. "You've known for 6 months and never said a word?" "We were trying to figure out the best way to tell you. We hired a private investigator. Mom, listen to me. Marie is wealthy. Very wealthy. She inherited a fortune from her adoptive parents and built it into something much larger through investments. She lives in Westmount, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Montreal." I stared at my son, this man I thought I knew, and felt like I was looking at a stranger. "Why didn't you tell me the moment you found out?" He looked away. "We were protecting you." "Protecting me from what? From knowing I have a sister? From the truth?" "It's complicated, Mom. Marie, she's not well. Early-stage Alzheimer's. And there are people around her. People who—" He stopped abruptly. "People who what, Derek?" He stood up, pacing to the window. "People who might not want her to suddenly discover she has a long-lost twin sister who could potentially make claims on her estate." The words hung in the air like poison gas. I felt sick. "Is that what you think I'd do? Make claims on a stranger's money?" "Of course not." He turned back to me, his expression anguished. "But others might think that. We were trying to figure out how to approach this carefully, legally, safely. For both of you. I want to meet her." The words came out before I'd even fully formed the thought. "This Marie. I want to meet my sister." Derek's face went completely white. That might not be the best idea right now. Why not? Because, he stopped, seeming to struggle with something. Because she goes to that super save 3 times a day, Mom. Sometimes more. She buys random things and forgets she already bought them. She gets confused. And the people around her, her financial advisor, her lawyer, they're very protective. If they found out about you suddenly, if they thought you were trying to... I don't care about her money. I stood up, anger flooding through me. I care that I had a sister I never knew about. I care that my mother lied to me my entire life. I care that you've been keeping this from me. Mom, please. No. I held up my hand. You don't get to mom please me right now. You've been lying to me for 6 months. 6 months of phone calls and visits where you could have told me the truth. I grabbed my purse, my hands shaking with fury and shock and a grief I didn't fully understand yet. Where are you going? For a walk. I need air. I need to think. Mom, wait. There's more. There's something else you need to know about Marie, about why we've been... But I was already out the door, unable to hear another word. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I needed to understand how my entire life could suddenly feel like a lie. The October air hit me like a slap as I stepped onto Rue St. Paul. Tourists wandered past, taking photos of the historic buildings. A street musician played violin on the corner. Everything was absurdly normal while my world crumbled. I had a sister, a twin, separated at birth, and my son had been keeping her existence secret for 6 months. The question that burned in my mind as I walked aimlessly through Old Montreal wasn't just why. It was, what else was Derek hiding? I pulled my cardigan tighter and kept walking, not knowing that the answer to that question would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family and myself. I walked for nearly 2 hours, my mind spinning through decades of memories, searching for clues I'd missed. By the time I returned to Derek's apartment, dusk had fallen and my feet ached. The lights were on in every room, and through the window I could see both Derek and Natalie moving around inside, their gestures sharp and agitated. I paused at the door, fishing for my key, when I heard Natalie's voice raised in anger, a rare break in her usually perfect composure. You should never have let her go to that store. What were you thinking? I didn't know Marie would be there today, Derek shot back. How could I have known? You should have been more careful. 6 months of planning, Derek. 6 months. And you blow it in one careless trip to the grocery store. Planning? My hand froze on the doorknob. What planning? Keep your voice down, Derek hissed. She could come back any minute. Good. Maybe it's time we told her everything. This sneaking around is making me sick. We can't tell her. Not yet. Not until after... I pushed the door open. They both jumped, Natalie's hand flying to her chest. She recovered quickly, smoothing her blonde hair and arranging her face into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Loretta, you must be freezing. Let me make you some tea. After what? I asked, closing the door behind me. Derek said, not until after. After what? The look that passed between them was heavy with meaning I couldn't decipher. Mom, you're taking this out of context, Derek began. Then give me the context. I set my purse down deliberately, keeping my voice calm despite the fury building in my chest. Tell me what you've been planning for 6 months. Natalie moved toward the kitchen. I'll make that tea. Stop. The word came out harder than I intended. Both of you sit down. Now. They exchanged another glance, and something in Derek's expression made him look 12 years old again, caught sneaking cookies before dinner. They sat on the white leather sofa while I remained standing. A position of authority I'd learned long ago gave me an advantage. The truth, I said. All of it. Starting now. Derek rubbed his face with both hands. Mom, this is going to sound worse than it is. Then you'd better choose your words carefully. He took a deep breath. Marie doesn't just have Alzheimer's. She has no other family. No children. Never married. Her adoptive parents died years ago. Her entire estate, we're talking about $40 million, Mom, is going to charity when she dies. The number hit me like a physical blow. $40 million. And? I prompted, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. Natalie spoke up, her voice tight. And we've been helping her. becoming her friends. She's lonely, confused. She needed people she could trust. Trust, I repeated slowly. The word felt sour in my mouth. You befriended a sick, wealthy woman who happens to look exactly like me, and you never thought to mention this? We were going to tell you, Derek insisted. But we needed to establish the relationship first, make sure she was comfortable, get the legal groundwork in place. Legal groundwork? My voice rose. What legal groundwork? Silence. Heavy and damning. Derek Michael Collins, answer me right now. Marie changed her will 3 months ago, he said quietly. She left half of her estate to me. Said I was like the son she never had. The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You manipulated a sick woman into changing her will. The words came out as a whisper. No! Derek jumped up. It wasn't like that. We genuinely care about her. She was being taken advantage of by her financial advisor, this shark named Richard Pemberton. He had power of attorney, was charging her outrageous fees, isolating her from everyone. We actually helped her, Mom. We protected her. By positioning yourself to inherit $20 million? By being there for her when no one else was. Natalie's voice cracked. Do you know what it's like watching someone slowly lose themselves? We visit her every day. Every single day. We make sure she takes her medications, that she eats properly, that she's not wandering the streets confused. Where were the charities then? Where were all these organizations that are supposedly getting her money? I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. Does she know? Does Marie know I exist? The silence stretched too long. Answer me. No, Derek admitted. We haven't told her. Why not? Because Pemberton would use it against us, Natalie said. He's already suspicious. If he found out Marie has an identical twin who knew nothing about her existence, he'd claim we were running some kind of con. He'd say we planned the whole thing, that you were in on it from the start. But I wasn't. I didn't even know. I stopped, realization dawning. That's why you never told me. You couldn't risk me accidentally meeting Marie. Couldn't risk anyone finding out about me at all, because it would ruin your claim to her money. It's not about the money. Derek's face flushed red. Mom, I love Marie. She's family. She's your sister, which makes her my aunt. Don't you see? We were trying to protect everyone. Her from Pemberton, you from getting dragged into a legal nightmare, and yes, ourselves from false accusations. You should have told me the moment you found out. My voice was hard. The moment you realized I had a twin sister, you should have told me. Nothing. Not money, not legal complications, nothing. Gave you the right to keep that from me. We were going to tell you next week, Natalie said. We had it all planned. We were going to introduce you to Marie on her birthday, November 7th. Make it a special occasion. Reunite you both properly, with witnesses, with everything documented so no one could claim impropriety later. How convenient, I said coldly. After she'd already changed her will. Derek's face crumpled. That's not fair. Fair? I stood up, trembling with anger and heartbreak. You want to talk about fair? I've spent 64 years thinking I was alone in the world. My mother died without telling me I had a sister. And you, my own son, discovered her 6 months ago and said nothing. You befriended her, ingratiated yourself into her life, convinced her to give you $20 million, all while keeping me in the dark. Don't you dare talk to me about fair. I headed toward the guest room. Mom, wait. There's something else. Derek's voice stopped me. Something you need to understand about why we did this. I can't imagine what could possibly justify. Pemberton has been stealing from her. The words came out in a rush. We have evidence. Bank statements, forged signatures. He's siphoned off at least $5 million over the past 3 years. Marie was too confused to notice, and he was counting on her dying before anyone figured it out. I turned slowly. You have evidence? Copies of everything. We've been building a case, waiting for the right moment to expose him. But if we moved too soon, he'd destroy the evidence and claim we were the ones stealing from her. We needed Marie to be stable enough to testify, needed to establish our credibility first. And getting $20 million establishes your credibility. Natalie stood up. The new will has a clause. If Derek inherits, he has to use at least half of it to establish a foundation in Marie's name for Alzheimer's research and patient care. It was Marie's idea. She wanted her money to help people like her. I studied my daughter-in-law's face, searching for deception. But all I saw was exhaustion and what looked like genuine emotion. "Show me the evidence," I said. "About Pemberton." Derek retrieved his laptop and pulled up a folder labeled MP Financial Records. I spent 20 minutes reviewing bank statements, transfer records, and email chains. The pattern was clear: regular withdrawals, always just under the threshold that would trigger automatic reviews, always accompanied by vague justifications like investment management fees or estate planning consultation. "This is theft," I said finally. "Why haven't you gone to the police?" "Because Pemberton has connections," Derek explained. "His brother-in-law is a judge. His golf buddy is the police chief. We need an airtight case, and we need Marie coherent enough to back us up. Her lucid days are getting rarer." A knock on the door made us all freeze. Derek checked the security camera feed on his phone and went pale. "It's Pemberton." "What?" Natalie's voice pitched high. "What's he doing here?" "I don't know, but—" Derek looked at me. "Mom, you need to hide. If he sees you, if he realizes you exist, I'm not hiding in my own son's apartment. Please." His eyes were desperate. "Please, just this once. We're so close to exposing him. Don't let him ruin it now." The knock came again, more insistent. Against every instinct, I retreated to the guest room, leaving the door cracked just enough to hear. My heart hammered as Derek opened the front door. "Mr. Pemberton." Derek's voice was carefully neutral. "This is unexpected." "Indeed." The voice that answered was smooth, cultured, and cold. "We need to talk about Marie, and about some very interesting financial records that have gone missing from my office." My blood ran cold. He knew. Somehow, he knew they'd been investigating him. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Derek said calmly. "Don't you?" Pemberton's voice moved closer. "Funny thing about security cameras, Derek. They catch all sorts of interesting activity. Like, for instance, someone who looks remarkably like you accessing the building's document room 3 weeks ago, using a key card that was reported stolen. Through the crack in the door, I could see Natalie's face go white. "That's absurd," Derek said. "I've never been to your building." "Then you won't mind explaining why Marie suddenly wants to fire me as her financial advisor? After 3 years of perfectly satisfactory service? Who's been filling her head with lies during her confused state? Marie makes her own decisions." "Does she?" Pemberton laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Or do her new best friends make them for her? You know, Derek, manipulating vulnerable seniors is a crime. Elder abuse, fraud, undue influence. These charges carry serious prison time. Get out of my home." "Gladly, but understand this. I've already filed a complaint with Adult Protective Services. They'll be investigating Marie's situation very thoroughly. Every relationship, every financial transaction, every changed document. If they find that you've been manipulating her, taking advantage of her diminished capacity, well, I imagine that $20 million inheritance will evaporate rather quickly, along with your freedom. We've done nothing wrong. Then you have nothing to worry about." Pemberton's voice dripped with false pleasantness. "I'm sure the investigation will clear everything up. Oh, and one more thing. I've petitioned the court to have Marie declared legally incompetent. The hearing is scheduled for November 15th. Once she's declared incompetent, any wills she signed in the past year will be void. Just thought you should know." The door closed. I heard the lock click. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Natalie started crying. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Derek held her, his own face ashen. I stepped out of the bedroom, my mind racing. Adult Protective Services, court hearings, accusations of elder abuse, and in the middle of it all, a sick woman, my sister, who I still hadn't met. "When is Marie's next lucid day?" I asked quietly. Derek looked up, surprised. "Sometimes mornings are better." "Why?" "Because you're going to take me to meet her. Tomorrow morning. Before any investigators show up. Before any court hearings. I deserve to meet my sister." Mom, if Pemberton finds out you exist, then he finds out. I squared my shoulders. But I'm not going to let that man, or anyone else, keep me from meeting Marie. She's my family, my blood. And unlike you, I'm not going to keep secrets from her. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Derek's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face went even paler, something I wouldn't have thought possible. What? Natalie asked. It's from Marie's building security. She's missing. She left for her walk 3 hours ago and hasn't returned. Outside the window, Montreal had gone dark. Somewhere in this city, my twin sister was lost, confused, and alone. And I was going to find her, whether my son helped me or not. We need to call the police, Natalie said, already reaching for her phone. No, Derek's hand shot out, stopping her. We can't involve the authorities. Not with Pemberton's complaint already filed. It'll look like we're the ones who let her wander off. Then what do you suggest? Natalie's voice was shrill with panic. She's been missing for 3 hours. Anything could have happened. I know where she might be, I interrupted. Both of them turned to stare at me. The super save. The cashier said she'd been there 3 times today. If she's confused, she might return to familiar places. Derek grabbed his car keys. That's 15 minutes away. Let's go. We drove through Montreal's nighttime streets in tense silence. I sat in the back seat, watching the city lights blur past, my mind filled with images of a woman I'd never met, but who shared my face. Was she frightened? Cold? Did some part of her sense that something was different tonight, that somewhere in this city, her mirror image was searching for her? The Super Save parking lot was nearly empty when we arrived. Through the windows, I could see Sophie at her register, looking bored as she rang up a customer's late-night purchases. There. Natalie pointed to a figure sitting on the bench outside the pharmacy next door. Is that her? Even from this distance, even in the dim light, I knew. It was like looking at a photograph of myself. She wore a camel-colored coat similar to one I owned. Her gray hair cut in almost the same style as mine. She was staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap. Let me talk to her, I said, already opening the car door. Mom, wait! Derek started. No more waiting, no more secrets. I stepped out into the cold night air. My heart thundered as I approached her. She didn't look up until I was standing directly in front of her. When she did, her eyes widened. Hazel eyes exactly like mine, set in a face that was my own reflected back at me. Oh, she said softly. I knew you'd come eventually. The words froze me in place. You knew about me? I've seen you. She smiled, but there was confusion in her eyes. In dreams. In mirrors sometimes. Mother always said I was imagining things. But I knew. I've always known I wasn't complete. I sat down beside her, my legs suddenly weak. My name is Loretta. Loretta Collins. Marie. She studied my face with wonder. Marie Hansen. You're very beautiful. We're very beautiful, aren't we? She laughed, a sound both delighted and lost. I should know my own face, but sometimes I don't. Do you ever forget what you look like? Marie, I'm your sister, your twin sister. I don't have a sister. Mother would have told me. But even as she said it, tears began streaming down her face. Why did she never tell me? I took her cold hands in mine. I don't know. But we're going to find out together. Behind us, I heard Derek and Natalie approaching. Marie's expression changed instantly when she saw Derek, brightening like a child seeing a favorite uncle. Derek? And Natalie. Did you come for our evening visit? You're very punctual tonight. She checked her watch, confused. Or am I late? I sometimes lose track. We were worried about you, Derek said gently, crouching down in front of her. You were gone a long time. Was I? She looked around as if seeing the parking lot for the first time. I wanted oranges. Did I get oranges? She had no bag, no purchases. It's okay, Natalie said softly. We'll get you home. But I haven't introduced you to my new friend. Marie gestured to me. Isn't she lovely? She says we're sisters. Do you think that's possible, Derek? The pain in my son's face was genuine. Whatever else he'd done, whatever his motivations, he clearly cared for this fragile woman. I think anything's possible, he said carefully. Let's get you somewhere warm and we can talk about it. We drove to Marie's apartment in Westmount, a stunning building overlooking the city. Marie dozed in the front seat, her head resting against the window, while I sat in back with my mind reeling from our brief conversation. She dreamed of me. All these years, some part of her had known. Her apartment was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows, original artwork, furniture that belonged in museums. But it also showed signs of her illness. Sticky notes everywhere with reminders, multiple calendars with conflicting appointments, 3 pairs of reading glasses scattered on various surfaces. Natalie guided Marie to the bedroom to change into comfortable clothes while Derek and I stood in the living room. I walked to the windows, looking out at Montreal's glittering skyline. "She's very sick, isn't she?" I said quietly. "Yes. Some days she's perfectly lucid. Other days—" He trailed off. "She's getting worse faster than the doctors predicted. How long have you really known her, Derek?" Silence. Then, 13 months. I turned to face him. 13 months? You said 6. I was trying to soften the blow. Mom, I met her at a hospital fundraiser that Natalie dragged me to. She was sitting alone, looking lost. I helped her find the coat check, and she thanked me. Said I reminded her of someone, though she couldn't remember who. A week later, I saw her at a cafe, and she didn't recognize me at all. That's when I realized something was wrong. And you decided to befriend her. Yes, because she was alone and scared and no one else cared. His voice broke. Do you know what Pemberton did when she got diagnosed? He isolated her, told her friends and the few distant relatives she had that she was becoming paranoid, that she was making accusations. He pushed everyone away so he could control her completely. I stepped in because someone had to, and convinced her to put you in her will. She insisted. She wanted to leave something to someone who actually cared about her. He ran his hands through his hair. I know how it looks. I know. But I swear, Mom, everything I did was to protect her from Pemberton. Then why didn't you go to the police immediately? Why play this long game? Because I needed irrefutable proof. Marie's testimony alone wouldn't hold up in court. She's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Any lawyer would tear her apart on the stand. I needed documentation, witnesses, a pattern of behavior. I've been working with a forensic accountant, gathering everything we need to put Pemberton away for good. The bedroom door opened. Natalie emerged, her face grave. Derek, you need to see this. We followed her into Marie's bedroom. She was sitting on the bed in her nightgown, looking small and frail. On the bed beside her was a wooden box. She wants to show you something, Natalie said. Marie opened the box with trembling fingers. Inside were letters, dozens of them, yellowed with age. She pulled one out and handed it to me. The handwriting was shaky but determined. My dearest daughter, if you're reading this, then I've finally found the courage to tell you the truth. Or I've passed on and you've discovered it yourself. You had a sister, a twin. The adoption agency separated you at birth. They said it was better that way, that twins were harder to place together, that you'd each have better lives apart. I've regretted that decision every day since. Her name was Loretta. She went to a family in Vermont. I tried to find her once, when you were 12, but they'd moved and the agency wouldn't give me information. Please forgive me. Please know that I loved you both, even though I only got to keep one of you. Your mother, Catherine Hansen. The letter was dated 3 years ago. Marie had known, or had started to know, before the disease took even that from her. There's more, Marie said, her voice clearer now, more present. She handed me another envelope, this one unopened. This came 2 weeks ago, from a lawyer in Vermont. I was supposed to open it, but I kept forgetting. Then I'd remember and get scared. Derek kept asking about it, but I wasn't ready. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from a law firm, Hartley & Associates, dated October 15th, 2025. Dear Ms. Hansen, we represent the estate of Ruth Collins, deceased September 30th, 2025. In reviewing Mrs. Collins's effects, we discovered documents pertaining to an adoption that took place in 1961. Mrs. Collins was not your biological mother, but she kept extensive records about the adoption, including information about your biological family. We believe you have a twin sister, Loretta Collins, who is Mrs. Collins's daughter by adoption. We attempted to contact Ms. Collins, but she has been traveling abroad. We are writing to inform you of this connection and to forward documents that Mrs. Collins wished both you and your sister to have. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience. I read it twice, 3 times. Ruth Collins, my mother. She'd died a month ago while I was visiting Derek. Died knowing the truth and never telling me. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. Your mother died? Derek's voice was small. Mom, you never said. I didn't know. The words exploded out of me. I was here, visiting you when it happened. My neighbor called 3 days later. I flew back for the funeral, but there was nothing. No mention of any documents. No lawyer contacted me about anything. Marie was watching me with those hazel eyes so like my own. Your mother kept secrets too. Yes. The word was bitter. Both our mothers did. There's something else in the box, Natalie said quietly. She pulled out a large manila envelope, unsealed. Inside was a birth certificate. Original, not amended. It listed both Catherine and Loretta Rose, born November 7, 1961, to Mary Sullivan, father unknown. Twin girls, separated by court order, December 1961. Mary Sullivan was our birth mother, I whispered. I hired someone to find her, Marie said. 2 years ago, before I got too sick. She died in 1989, liver failure. She was an alcoholic, unmarried, barely 16 when she had us. The state took us away and put us up for adoption separately. The room swam. I sat down hard on the bed. All my life, Marie continued, her voice gaining strength as if fighting through the fog of her disease. I felt like something was missing, like I was incomplete. Mother, Catherine, she was wonderful, but she was sad too. Guilty. She never told me about you because she was afraid I'd hate her for not fighting to keep us together. But I found these letters after she died. She'd been trying to find you for years. And my mother, I said slowly. She had documents about all of this. She knew where you were. She knew your name. Why didn't she tell you? Derek asked. The answer was there in the lawyer's letter. Because she thought I'd leave her. She thought if I knew I had a sister who was wealthy, successful, living an exciting life in Montreal, I'd resent her for our small life in Vermont. So she said nothing. She died and said nothing. Marie reached out and took my hand. We've both been robbed, sister. Robbed of 64 years together. But we're here now. My phone rang, shattering the moment. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me click accept. Mrs. Collins? The voice was crisp, professional. This is Richard Pemberton. I believe we need to talk about your sister and about your son's fraudulent activities. My blood froze. How did you get this number? I have my resources. I also have a proposition for you. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel restaurant. Come alone. If you bring your son or his wife, the police will be waiting instead. And trust me, Mrs. Collins, you want to hear what I have to say before anyone in uniform gets involved. Why should I? Because Derek isn't the only one who's been investigating people. I know about the documents he stole from my office. I know about the forensic accountant. I know about the will. And I know something he doesn't. Something about your mother's estate that's going to change everything. 10 a.m., Mrs. Collins. Don't be late. The line went dead. Derek was staring at me. What did he say? I looked at my son. This man I'd raised alone, worked double shifts for, sacrificed everything to give a good life. This man who'd been lying to me for 13 months. This man who might be a hero or a villain. And I still couldn't tell which. He wants to meet me. Tomorrow morning. Alone. Absolutely not, Derek said. It's a trap. Maybe. Or maybe he really does know something about Mother's estate. Something you don't. The look of fear that crossed Derek's face told me everything. There was still more he wasn't telling me. More secrets. More lies. More manipulation. Marie yawned, her brief moment of clarity fading. I'm very tired. Will you stay tonight, Loretta? I've spent so many nights alone. It would be nice to have my sister here. I looked at this fragile woman. My mirror. My blood. My twin. then at my son, standing rigid with secrets and fear. "Yes," I said to Marie. "Mom, we need to talk about Pemberton." "Tomorrow," I cut him off. "After I meet with him. After I hear what he has to say. You've controlled this narrative for 13 months, Derek. Now it's my turn." Natalie and Derek exchanged a look of pure panic. "Mom, please, you don't understand what you're walking into." "Then you should have been honest with me from the start." I stood up, helping Marie into bed. "Now go home, both of you. I'll call you after the meeting." "You can't trust Pemberton, and I can't trust you," I said quietly. "So I'll hear him out and make my own decisions." That's what adults do, Derek. They make their own informed decisions instead of manipulating people and keeping secrets. The words hit their mark. Derek's face crumpled. "I was trying to protect you," he whispered. "No, you were trying to protect yourself. Now please leave. My sister needs rest." After they left, I lay in the guest room of Marie's apartment, staring at the ceiling. In the next room, I could hear her breathing, deep and steady. We were connected by blood, by birth, by 64 years of unknowing separation. And tomorrow, I would walk into whatever trap or truth Richard Pemberton had waiting for me. Because unlike my son, I wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. I was afraid of what I'd become if I kept living in lies. I woke at 6 a.m. to find Marie already up, standing at her living room window in her nightgown, staring out at the city as dawn painted the sky pink and gold. "You're still here," she said without turning around. "I thought perhaps I'd dreamed you." "I'm real," I said, joining her at the window. "We both are." She turned to me, and for a moment her eyes were clear and sharp. "That man who called you last night. Richard. You shouldn't trust him, but you shouldn't trust Derek either. They're both using you, Loretta. Using us." "What do you mean?" But the clarity was already fading from her eyes. "I wrote it down somewhere. I always write things down now before I forget. But then I forget where I put the notes." She laughed, a sound edged with desperation. "It's like living in a house where someone keeps moving the furniture." I spent the next hour searching Marie's apartment while she showered and dressed. I found notes everywhere, on the refrigerator, tucked in books, taped to mirrors. Most were mundane reminders. Take pills at 8 a.m. Derek visits Tuesdays and Thursdays. Natalie's birthday is March 12th. But then I found one tucked inside a cookbook in the kitchen, written in shaky handwriting that grew more frantic as it progressed. Richard knows about Loretta. He showed me a photograph, said she's been in Montreal for days, said Derek is hiding her. Why? Derek says Richard is stealing from me, but Richard says Derek is manipulating me. Who do I believe? I don't know anymore. I don't know anything. There's money missing. $250,000. Someone took it. Richard says Derek. Derek says Richard. I just want it to stop. I just want to remember who I can trust. The note was dated 5 days ago, 2 days before I'd arrived in Montreal. My hands trembled as I pocketed the note. Pemberton had known about me before the incident at the grocery store. He'd been watching, waiting, gathering information. But how? And why wait until now to contact me? Marie emerged from her bedroom dressed in slacks and a sweater, looking remarkably put together. "I'm having a good morning," she announced. "I can feel it. My mind is clear. Will you make coffee?" I can never remember the right amount of water. We sat together at her breakfast table, drinking coffee and eating toast. For a few precious moments, we were just two sisters sharing a morning meal, the way we should have been doing for 64 years. "Tell me about your life," Marie said. "I want to know everything. Did you marry? Have children? What did you do for work?" I told her about my late husband, James, who died of a heart attack 15 years ago, about my career as a nurse, about Derek, my only child, and how proud I'd been when he'd gotten into law school. "He was always ambitious," I said, "even as a boy. But he was kind too. Or I thought he was." "He is kind," Marie said firmly. "I see it when he visits. The way he makes sure I've eaten. The way he reads to me when I can't focus on the words myself. But he's also desperate. I can see that too. Desperate for what? Money, security. Not for himself, for Natalie. She grew up wealthy, you know. Her family lost everything in the 2008 crash. She's terrified of being poor again, And Derek would do anything to keep her happy, even things that shame him. I thought of the will, the $20 million, the careful manipulation. You know what he's doing, don't you? You know he's positioned himself to inherit half your estate. Of course I know. I'm sick, Loretta, not stupid. Not yet, anyway. She smiled sadly. I made him the beneficiary because I wanted to. Because he's family. Your son, which makes him mine too. And because I'd rather the money go to family than to charities run by people who've never met me. But what about Pemberton's theft? The evidence Derek has. Marie's expression darkened. That's real. Richard has been stealing from me. I have proof. Not just Derek's proof, but my own. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago, during one of my lucid periods. Richard doesn't know about him. Neither does Derek. I set down my coffee cup carefully. What did the investigator find? Everything. Richard's gambling debts, his mistress in Toronto, the shell companies he's been funneling my money through. But he also found something else. She reached across the table and gripped my hand. Loretta, your mother's estate. The documents that lawyer mentioned in the letter? Richard has them. The room seemed to tilt. What? How? The investigator tracked the lawyer firm, Hartley and Associates. They sent copies of Ruth Collins's documents to both of us. But Richard intercepts my mail, has for months. He's been opening everything, screening it. He got my copy and realized immediately what it meant. That's how he knew about you. But why didn't the lawyer contact me directly? They did. They sent a registered letter to your address in Vermont 3 weeks ago. You weren't home to sign for it, so it was returned to sender. They tried again last week. Same result. Because I'd been here in Montreal visiting Derek. The timing was almost too perfect to be coincidence. What's in those documents, Marie? She stood up, walking to a bookshelf. She pulled out a hollowed-out book and retrieved a manila folder from inside. My investigator got copies. Richard doesn't know I have them. Inside were pages and pages of documentation. But it was the handwritten letter on top that made my blood run cold. To my daughters, Loretta and Marie. If you're reading this, then you've found each other, and I am gone. I'm sorry for the secrets. I'm sorry for the lies. But most of all, I'm sorry for what I'm about to tell you. Your biological mother, Mary Sullivan, didn't die in 1989 as the records show. That was a fiction created by the adoption agency to discourage you from searching for her. Mary is alive. She lives in a care facility in Burlington, Vermont, under the name Mary Brennan. She has advanced dementia now, but 30 years ago, when I tracked her down, she was lucid enough to tell me the truth. You weren't given up for adoption because she was an unfit mother. You were taken from her. By force. By a private adoption ring run through St. Catherine's Hospital in Burlington. Wealthy couples paid premium prices for healthy white infants, and the hospital found ways to supply them. Mary was 16, unmarried, poor. They told her you died at birth, both of you. They told her she'd had a stillborn delivery, and that she should forget and move on with her life. She never forgot. She spent years searching, until the grief and the drinking destroyed her. I found out about this in 1995, when a newspaper investigation exposed St. Catherine's adoption practices. Dozens of families were affected. I wanted to tell you, Loretta. Every day I wanted to tell you. But by then you had your own life, your own family. I convinced myself that the truth would only cause pain. I was wrong. You deserve to know. I've left documentation with my lawyer, evidence of the adoption ring, Mary's location, contact information for other families affected. I've also left $50,000 to be split between you and Marie. Not much, but all I could save. Use it to find the truth. Use it to make peace with what was stolen from you. I loved you as best I could. I hope that's enough. Ruth Collins. The letter was dated September 15, 2025, 2 weeks before she died. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Our mother, our birth mother, was alive, had been alive all along, and the adoption that had separated us wasn't a choice. It was a crime. Derek doesn't know about this, Marie said quietly. He thinks the documents are just adoption records, birth certificates. He doesn't know about Mary, about the adoption ring, about the money. But Pemberton does. Yes, And that's why he wants to meet you. He's going to offer you a deal, Loretta. He'll give you the original documents, the ones that prove the illegal adoption, the ones that could potentially open up lawsuits against the hospital, the state, everyone involved. But in exchange, you'll have to help him. Help him how? Testify that Derek has been manipulating me. Sign a statement saying that he's been keeping you away from me, preventing family contact. With your testimony, Pemberton can have Derek's will inheritance nullified and possibly bring criminal charges. I stood up, pacing to the window. Below, Montreal was coming to life. Cars filling the streets, people hurrying to work, the normal rhythm of a city that had no idea my world was crumbling. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why not let me walk into that meeting blind? Because you're my sister. Because we've lost 64 years, and I won't lose more to lies and manipulation." She joined me at the window. "I'm dying, Loretta. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but the disease is taking me piece by piece. I don't want to spend what's left playing games with Richard Pemberton or watching Derek destroy himself with greed. What do you want?" "I want the truth. All of it. I want to meet our mother, if she's still alive enough to know us. I want the people who stole us from her to be held accountable. And I want you to have what's rightfully yours. Not my money, but the truth about where you came from." My phone rang. Derek. I silenced it. 5 seconds later, it rang again. Then a text. "Mom, please don't go to that meeting. Pemberton is dangerous. We need to talk now." "He knows I'm here," I said. "He probably has someone watching the building. Richard is thorough." Another text came through, this one longer. "Pemberton embezzled $2.3 million from Marie. He's desperate. He'll say anything to turn you against me. The meeting is a trap. He might hurt you. Please." I stared at the message. Was Derek genuinely concerned for my safety? Or was he concerned about losing his inheritance? "I have to go," I said. "I have to hear what Pemberton has to say. I'm coming with you." "Marie, you can't." "I can, and I will. It's my money he's stealing. My life they're all fighting over. I deserve to be there." Her voice was strong, clear. "Besides, if I'm there, he can't lie about what I want. And neither can Derek." She was right. And more than that, I wanted her with me. My sister, the other half of myself
twin.
that I'd been missing all my life. We took a cab to the Ritz-Carlton. Marie was sharp during the ride, pointing out landmarks, telling me stories about Montreal, but I could see the effort it took, the way she gripped my hand as if anchoring herself to the present moment. The restaurant was elegant and quiet, filled with well-dressed business people having power breakfasts. Richard Pemberton sat at a corner table, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who radiated predatory confidence. His eyes widened when he saw Marie with me. "Mrs. Hanson, this is unexpected." "Is it, Richard?" Marie's voice was ice. "You've been making decisions about my life for 3 years. I thought it was time I participated in the conversation." We sat down. A waiter appeared, but Pemberton waved him away. "You shouldn't have brought her," he said to me. "My sister goes where I go," I replied. The word sister felt powerful, claiming a relationship that had been stolen from us. Pemberton's smile was thin. "Very well, then you'll both hear what I have to say." He slid a folder across the table. Inside are the original documents from Ruth Collins's estate. Everything about the adoption ring, about your biological mother, about the money she left you. I'll give you all of it, free and clear. In exchange for what? In exchange for your testimony that Derek Collins has been engaged in financial elder abuse of Marie Hanson, that he's manipulated her into changing her will, isolated her from professional care, and stolen funds from her accounts. "Derek hasn't stolen anything," Marie said firmly. "Hasn't he?" Pemberton pulled out another folder. 3 weeks ago, $250,000 was transferred from your investment account to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The authorization had your signature, but I've had it analyzed. It's a forgery." He slid a document across the table. It was indeed a transfer authorization, signed Marie Hanson in handwriting that looked close to hers but wasn't quite right. "Derek did this?" I whispered. "Or he had someone do it for him. The timing is interesting, don't you think? Right after he learned you were coming to visit. right after he knew his window of opportunity was closing. Marie picked up the document, studying it. This isn't Derek's work. How can you be sure? Because it's yours, Richard. She looked up at him with absolute clarity in her eyes. I recognize the mistakes. You always make my M too looped, and you never quite get the angle right on my W. Derek would have been more careful. Pemberton's face went very still. That's absurd. Is it? Because my private investigator has samples of your forgeries going back 2 years. You've been practicing my signature, getting better at it, but you're still not perfect. I watched the color drain from Pemberton's face, watched his careful control slip. You're confused, he said, his voice hardening. The Alzheimer's makes me forgetful, not blind, not stupid. Marie placed both palms flat on the table. Here's what's going to happen, Richard. You're going to give Loretta those documents. All of them, with no conditions. You're going to resign as my financial advisor today. And you're going to return every penny you've stolen from me, or I'm going to have you arrested. You have no proof. I have an investigator's report documenting every theft. I have bank records, handwriting analysis, testimony from your assistant who you pressured into helping you. I have everything, Richard. I've had it for months. I was just waiting for the right moment to use it. Pemberton stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Several diners looked over. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Derek is using you. When he gets his hands on that inheritance, you'll never see him again. Maybe, Marie said, but that's my choice to make, not yours. And the documents about Loretta's adoption? You think I'll just hand them over now? You will, I said, finding my voice. Because if you don't, we'll add obstruction and blackmail to the list of charges. Those documents belong to me. They're part of my mother's estate. Withholding them is a crime. Pemberton's eyes were cold with fury. You have no idea what you're doing. That adoption ring, there are powerful people who don't want that exposed. People who will make your life very difficult if you start asking questions. Is that a threat? Marie asked. It's a warning, for both of you. He leaned down, his voice dropping. You think Derek is the villain here? At least he genuinely cares about you, Marie, in his own twisted way. The people who ran that adoption ring? They're still out there, still connected, still powerful, and they will not appreciate you digging up the past. He threw a business card on the table. When you're ready to be reasonable, call me. The documents will be waiting, but don't wait too long. Your window of opportunity is closing faster than you think. He walked out, leaving us sitting in stunned silence. Marie's hand was shaking now, her moment of clarity fading. Loretta? Why are we in a restaurant? Are we celebrating something? My heart broke. Yes, I said gently. We're celebrating finding each other. Oh, that's nice. She smiled, vague and distant. Did I have breakfast? I can't remember. I helped her to her feet, guiding her out of the restaurant. But my mind was racing. Pemberton's warning echoed in my head. Powerful people, still connected, still out there. My phone buzzed. Derek. Where are you? I'm at Marie's apartment. We need to talk about Pemberton right now. And beneath that, a text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions about St. Catherine's Hospital. This is your only warning. I looked down at my sister, already forgetting where we were, forgetting our confrontation with Pemberton, forgetting everything but the present moment. Somewhere in Vermont, our birth mother lived in a care facility, not knowing her daughters were alive. Somewhere in Montreal, my son was either a hero or a criminal, and I still couldn't tell which. And somewhere in the shadows, people who had built fortunes on stolen babies were watching. I had walked into this thinking it was just about family secrets and inheritance disputes. I was beginning to realize it was so much more dangerous than that. Derek was pacing Marie's living room like a caged animal when we returned. Natalie sat on the couch, her perfect composure finally cracked, mascara smudged under her eyes. Where have you been? Derek's voice was ragged. I've been calling for 2 hours. Do you have any idea how worried? He stopped when he saw Marie's confused expression. What happened? Is she okay? She's tired, I said, guiding Marie to her bedroom. We had breakfast out. She needs to rest. Breakfast? Mom, you met with Pemberton, didn't you? What did he say? What did you tell him? Rest first, I said to Marie. helping her onto the bed. "We'll talk later." "But we just woke up," Marie protested weakly. "Didn't we?" I kissed her forehead, an instinct that felt both foreign and completely natural. "Just a short nap, sister." Her eyes widened, a flash of recognition. "Sister. Yes. I have a sister now. I need to remember that. I need to—" But sleep was already pulling her under. I closed the bedroom door and turned to face Derek and Natalie. The time for secrets was over. "Sit down," I said. "Both of you." Something in my voice made Derek obey immediately. I pulled out Marie's notes, the investigator's report, Ruth Collins's letter, and laid them all on the coffee table like evidence at a trial. "Before you say anything, I want you to understand something," I began. "I know about the private investigator Marie hired. I know about the adoption ring. I know about our birth mother being alive. I know about Pemberton's forgeries and his gambling debts and every penny he's stolen. And I know about the $250,000 that went missing 3 weeks ago." Derek's face went white. "Mom, I can explain." "Can you? Because here's what I think happened." I sat down across from them, channeling every ounce of authority I'd developed through 40 years of nursing, of managing crises, of making life-and-death decisions in emergency rooms. "I think you found out about me before I came to Montreal. I think you knew the lawyer had sent documents to both Marie and me, and I think you panicked. That's not— Let me finish." My voice was steel. "You panicked because you realized that if I found out about Marie, if we connected, your carefully constructed plan would fall apart. So you did 2 things. First, you made sure I was here, visiting you, when those registered letters arrived at my house in Vermont. You extended my visit, kept me busy, made sure I wasn't home to receive them. Natalie's sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit the mark. Second, you moved money, a lot of money, out of Marie's accounts, not to steal it, to protect it, because you knew Pemberton was about to make his move, and you wanted assets secured somewhere he couldn't touch them." Derek's jaw worked silently. "But you made a mistake," I continued. "You forged Marie's signature on the transfer authorization. Not very well, differently than Pemberton's forgeries, but still detectably false, and that gave Pemberton ammunition to use against you." "I was trying to protect her," Derek burst out. "Pemberton was going to clean out her accounts before the court hearing. I had to move the money somewhere safe." "To the Cayman Islands? How is that protecting her?" "It's a trust account, in her name, with you and me as secondary trustees." He grabbed his laptop, pulling up documents with shaking hands. "Look, here's the paperwork. Every penny is accounted for. I was going to tell both of you, once it was safely out of Pemberton's reach." I examined the documents. They looked legitimate, but I'd learned not to trust appearances. If that's true, why hide it? Why not just tell Marie what you were doing? "Because she has good days and bad days," Natalie said, her voice breaking. "What if we told her on a good day, and she agreed, but then on a bad day she forgot and thought we were stealing from her? What if she told Pemberton? He'd have found a way to block the transfer or worse. He'd have used it to prove we were manipulating her." I studied their faces, the exhaustion, the fear, the desperate sincerity. They believed they were heroes in this story. Maybe they were, or maybe they were just better liars than I'd given them credit for. "Show me everything," I said. "Every document, every account, every piece of evidence you have against Pemberton. And I mean everything, Derek. No more secrets." For the next hour, they did. Bank statements showing Pemberton's systematic theft, emails between Pemberton and his assistant discussing how to hide the transactions, recorded phone calls where he pressured Marie into signing documents she didn't understand, the forensic accountant's report showing a clear pattern of embezzlement totaling over $2 million. "This is enough to put him in prison," I said, reviewing the last document. "It should be," Derek agreed. "But he has connections. His brother-in-law is Judge Harrison Mitchell. His lawyer is Peter Drummond, who's defended half the wealthy criminals in Montreal. Without Marie as a credible witness, without someone who can testify to the personal impact of his theft, the case might not stick. And that's where I come in." Derek looked up, surprised. "What? That's what you've been planning all along, isn't it? You need me." Not just as Marie's sister, but as a credible witness who can testify about her mental state, about Pemberton's behavior, about the impact of his theft on a family that's already been torn apart. The guilty look on his face was answer enough. I stood up, walking to the window. Outside, Montreal gleamed in the afternoon sun, beautiful and indifferent to the dramas playing out in its buildings. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, turning back to them. "Tomorrow, we're going to do exactly what you've been planning. We're going to expose Pemberton, but we're going to do it right, with full transparency, with Marie's consent on one of her good days, and with legal representation that isn't connected to anyone involved in this mess. Mom, I'm not finished. In exchange, you're going to do something for me. You're going to help me find our birth mother. You're going to help me track down every person involved in that adoption ring. And you're going to accept that when this is over, whatever Marie decides about her will, whether she keeps you as a beneficiary or removes you entirely, we're going to respect her decision without argument." "Of course," Derek said quickly. "I never—" "And one more thing." I pulled out my phone, opening the text from the unknown number. This came right after I left the restaurant with Pemberton. "Someone is threatening us, warning us away from investigating St. Catherine's Hospital. I want to know who sent it, and I want to know what they're afraid we'll find." Natalie took the phone, her face going pale as she read the message. "Derek, this is serious. These people, whoever ran that adoption ring, they're still out there. Which is exactly why we need to move fast," I said. "Before they realize how much we know. Before they have time to destroy evidence or silence witnesses." Derek stood up, and for the first time since I'd arrived in Montreal, I saw something in his face that reminded me of the boy I'd raised. Determined, brave, and yes, genuinely caring. "Okay," he said, "but we do this together, as a family. No more secrets." "No more secrets," I agreed. A sound from Marie's bedroom made us all turn. She stood in the doorway, her hair mussed from sleep, her eyes clearer than I'd seen them all day. "I heard everything," she said quietly. "The walls aren't as thick as you think." We froze, uncertain how much she'd understood, how much she'd remember. "You want to know what I think?" Marie walked into the room, her posture straight, her voice steady. "I think Derek is greedy and manipulative and made terrible choices. I also think he genuinely cares about me and was trying to protect my money from a thief. Both things can be true." She sat down in the armchair, folding her hands in her lap like a queen holding court. "I think Loretta is angry and hurt, and doesn't know who to trust. I also think she's the strongest person in this room, and the only one brave enough to demand the truth. Both things can be true." She looked at each of us in turn. "And I think I'm dying. Slowly, piece by piece. And I'd rather spend what's left of my good days finding out where I came from than fighting over where my money goes. So here's what we're going to do." She pulled out her phone, dialing a number from memory. "Hello, Joe? It's Marie Hansen. Yes, I know it's been a while. Listen, I need you to come to my apartment tonight. 7 o'clock. Bring your recording equipment and your notary stamp. We're going to do this properly." She hung up and smiled at our stunned faces. Joe Rothstein. My lawyer. My real lawyer, not the one Pemberton kept pushing me toward. I hired him 6 months ago, on the same day I hired the investigator. I've been preparing for this moment for a long time. "You've been playing us," Derek whispered. "All of us, this whole time." "Not playing, planning." Marie's smile was sharp. "Did you really think I'd let my disease rob me of control over my own life? I might forget what I had for breakfast, but I haven't forgotten how to protect myself." She stood up, walking to a locked cabinet I'd noticed earlier but hadn't questioned. She pulled out a key from her pocket. She'd been keeping it on her person the whole time, and opened it. Inside were dozens of file folders, all meticulously labeled: Pemberton evidence, Derek investigation, adoption records, St. Catherine's Hospital, Mary Sullivan Brennan. "I've been documenting everything," Marie said. "Every conversation, every visitor, every lucid moment I could manage. Yes, I have Alzheimer's. Yes, I'm getting worse. But I'm not helpless. And I'm not anyone's victim." She pulled out a folder labeled Tonight's Meeting and handed it to me. Inside was an agenda, typed up and printed, outlining exactly what would happen at the meeting with her lawyer. "We're going to do several things tonight," Marie said. "First, we're going to file a formal complaint against Richard Pemberton with the police, complete with all the evidence I've gathered. Second, we're going to execute a new will, one that's properly witnessed and can't be challenged. Third, we're going to give Loretta full access to all the adoption records and my investigators' findings. And fourth, we're going to create a legal framework for what happens when I can no longer make my own decisions." "Marie," I started. "I'm making you my power of attorney, Loretta. Not Derek, not Natalie. You. You're my sister, my blood, and you're the only person in this room who hasn't lied to me." Derek's face crumpled. "Aunt Marie, I never meant—" "I know what you meant. I know you were trying to help. But you also wanted that money, Derek. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." She softened slightly. "You're still in the will. A generous amount. Enough to secure your future. But the bulk of my estate is going into a trust that Loretta will manage, with explicit instructions on how it's to be used." She turned to me. "For finding our mother, for exposing the adoption ring, for helping other families torn apart by those monsters. And yes, for Alzheimer's research, so maybe someday other families won't have to go through this." Tears streamed down my face. "You're giving me everything. I'm giving you a mission. There's a difference." She took my hands. "We have so little time, Loretta. Maybe a year of good days, scattered among the bad ones. I want to use them for something that matters. I want to know where I came from. I want to meet our mother, if she can still recognize us. I want the people who stole us to face justice. And if they're powerful, if they're dangerous?" Marie's smile was fierce. "Then we'll be more dangerous. We've spent 64 years not knowing each other. I'm not going to spend what's left being afraid." The intercom buzzed. Derek checked the security screen and went pale. "It's the police. 2 detectives." "Already?" Natalie's voice pitched high with panic. "I called them this morning," Marie said calmly. "Before Loretta and I went to meet Pemberton. I told them I had evidence of financial elder abuse and wanted to file a formal complaint. They said they'd send detectives this afternoon." She walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Send them up, please." Derek looked at me, his eyes desperate. "Mom, You made your choices, Derek. Now we face the consequences together, as a family." The knock came at the door. Marie opened it to reveal 2 detectives, one middle-aged woman with kind eyes, one younger man with a notebook. "Mrs. Hanson? I'm Detective Louise Moreau, and this is Detective James Park. You called about financial abuse?" "Yes, please come in. I have a lot to tell you." Over the next 2 hours, Marie laid it all out for them with remarkable clarity. The theft, the forgeries, Pemberton's manipulation, Derek's well-meaning but legally questionable attempts to protect her money, the adoption records, the threatening text, all of it. The detectives took notes, asked questions, examined the evidence. When Marie began to fade, losing her train of thought, I stepped in to fill the gaps. Derek sat silent, his future hanging in the balance. Finally, Detective Moreau closed her notebook. "This is complicated," she said. "The financial crimes are clear-cut. We'll need to bring Mr. Pemberton in for questioning. As for the transfer to the Cayman Islands," she looked at Derek. "That's more ambiguous. If the account is genuinely a trust in Mrs. Hanson's name, and if she authorizes it retroactively, then it's probably legal. But Mr. Collins, you're walking a very thin line." "I know," Derek said quietly. "I just wanted to protect her. The road to trouble is paved with good intentions." Detective Moreau stood. "We'll be in touch. In the meantime, Mrs. Hanson, I'd suggest you consider getting some protection. If there really are people who don't want that adoption ring exposed, they might escalate beyond text messages." After the detectives left, we sat in exhausted silence. The lawyer, Joe Rothstein, would arrive in an hour. There were documents to sign, decisions to make, legal frameworks to establish. But for this moment, we just sat, 3 generations of one family and one newly discovered member of another, bound together by blood and money and secrets and love. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I hesitated, then opened it. The message was a photograph, a grave marker. The inscription read, Mary Brennan, 1945-2025. May she rest in peace. Below the photo, a message. Your mother died this morning. Stop looking for answers that died with her. My hands shook as I showed the message to Marie. Her face went still. Then she reached out and deleted the message. They're lying, she said firmly. It's a scare tactic. Call the care facility in Burlington. Verify she's alive. I dialed the number from the documents, my heart in my throat. A cheerful voice answered, Willowbrook Care Facility. How may I help you? I'm calling about a resident. Mary Brennan? Oh, yes. Mary had such a good day today. She actually ate all her lunch. Are you family? Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. Yes, I'm family. Wonderful. She doesn't get many visitors. When would you like to come see her? I looked at Marie, at Derek, at this strange makeshift family we'd become. Tomorrow, I said. We'll be there tomorrow. Because if someone was threatening us, trying to scare us away, that meant we were getting close to something they desperately wanted to hide. And I'd spent 64 years not knowing where I came from. I wasn't going to stop now. The morning light filtered through the windows of Willowbrook Care Facility in Burlington, Vermont, casting everything in soft gold. Marie sat beside me in the passenger seat of the rental car, her hands folded peacefully in her lap. She'd had a clear morning, sharp, focused, present, and we both knew to treasure it while it lasted. Derek and Natalie followed in their own car. The 3-hour drive from Montreal had been quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts about what we might find inside. Are you nervous? Marie asked as I turned off the engine. Terrified, I admitted. What if she doesn't know us? What if the dementia has taken everything? Then we'll sit with her anyway. We'll tell her who we are, even if she can't understand. We'll fill in the empty spaces of our lives, even if she can't fill in hers. Marie squeezed my hand. We're here, Loretta. Together. That's what matters. The care facility was nicer than I'd expected. Clean, bright, with artwork on the walls and the smell of coffee instead of antiseptic. A young nurse named Kelly greeted us warmly. You're here to see Mary? She'll be so happy. She's in the common room. Fair warning, though. She thinks it's 1963 most days. She talks about her babies a lot. Kelly's expression softened. The ones she thinks she lost. It's very sad. My throat tightened. Can we see her? Kelly led us through a hallway decorated with photographs and resident artwork. The common room was sunny and spacious, with several elderly residents scattered about. Some watching television, some doing puzzles, one woman painting at an easel. That's Mary, Kelly said, pointing to a woman sitting by the window. She was small, white-haired, her face deeply lined. But even from across the room, I could see traces of Marie and me in her features. The shape of her jaw, the way she tilted her head. Our mother. Marie and I approached slowly while Derek and Natalie hung back. Mary was staring out the window, humming tunelessly to herself. Mary, I said softly, crouching down beside her chair. Mary Sullivan? She turned, and her eyes, hazel like ours, widened. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, she whispered. No, this isn't real. You're not real. We're real, Mama, Marie said, kneeling on the other side. We're your daughters. Loretta and Marie. We found each other. We found you. Tears streamed down Mary's weathered face. She reached out with shaking hands, touching my cheek, then Marie's, as if verifying we were solid. They told me you died, she sobbed. Both of you. They said you were born too early. Too small. They said there was nothing they could do. I heard you cry, I know I did. But then they took you away. And when they brought you back, you were cold and still and they lied, I said gently, taking her frail hand. We didn't die, Mama. They took us, sold us to different families, separated us. But we're here now. 64 years, Mary whispered. I've been grieving you for 64 years. We sat with her for 2 hours. She drifted in and out of clarity, sometimes thinking we were nurses, sometimes thinking we were her own long-dead mother. But in the lucid moments, she told us everything. About the hospital, About the doctor who'd delivered us, Dr. Harold Weston. About the nurse who'd held her down when she tried to fight, insisted on seeing her babies. About waking up alone, being told her twins were dead, being given discharge papers and sent home to grieve. I tried to tell people, she said, her voice breaking. I told everyone who'd listen. But I was 16, unmarried, poor. Who was going to believe me? They said I was hysterical. They said grief had made me confused. Eventually, I started to believe them too. Marie pulled out a photograph, one the investigator had found of Catherine and Marie together when Marie was a child. This is the mother who raised me. She loved me. But she knew Mama. She knew what they'd done, and she tried to find Loretta to make it right. Mary studied the photo with tears running down her face. She looks kind. She was, Marie said. But I wish I'd known you too. Derek stepped forward, his expression gentle. Mary, I'm Derek, Loretta's son, your grandson. Mary looked up at him with wonder. I have a grandson? You have a family, I said, and we're going to make sure the people who took us from you face justice. Mary's hand tightened on mine. They're powerful people, baby. Rich people. They have lawyers and judges in their pockets. That's why I could never prove anything. That's why nobody believed me. We have evidence now, I said. Hospital records, adoption documents, testimony from other families. We have everything we need. Will it be enough? I thought of Marie's meticulously organized files, of the investigator's report, of Derek's legal expertise and Natalie's connections, of Detective Moreau's promise to investigate thoroughly. It will be, I said with more confidence than I felt, because we're not giving up. Not this time. We left Willowbrook 3 hours later with Mary's blessing and a promise to return soon. She'd asked us to bring photos next time, to help her remember our faces on the days when her mind failed her. The drive back to Montreal was different, heavier with purpose, lighter with truth. What happens now? Natalie asked when we stopped for gas. Now we fight, I said simply. For Mary, for every family the adoption ring destroyed, and for ourselves. Back in Montreal, Marie's lawyer Joe Rothstein had news. Richard Pemberton had been arrested that morning on multiple counts of financial fraud and elder abuse. His attempts to claim diplomatic immunity through his brother-in-law had failed. The investigation was expanding to include his other elderly clients. There's more, Joe said, sliding a document across his desk. We've identified 3 other lawyers and 2 judges who were involved in the adoption ring. Several are still alive, still practicing. With your testimony and the evidence you've gathered, the state is opening a formal investigation. How long will it take? Marie asked. Years, probably. These things move slowly. I don't have years. Marie's voice was calm, matter of fact. So we'd better work fast. Over the next month, we worked with a speed that would have been impossible without Marie's fortune backing us. We hired a legal team. We tracked down other victims of St. Catherine's adoption ring, now elderly themselves, many having never known they were stolen. We organized, documented, built an airtight case. Marie had good days and bad days. On the good days, she was sharp as ever, directing strategy like a general. On the bad days, I sat with her and told her stories about our mother, about our childhood that never was, about the life we should have had together. Derek threw himself into the legal work with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. I watched him carefully, still uncertain of his motives. But slowly I began to see that Natalie had been right. He was capable of both greed and genuine love, both manipulation and authentic care. He was, in the end, human, flawed and complicated and trying his best. The court hearing for Pemberton came in December. Marie was lucid that day, a gift we didn't take for granted. She testified clearly, calmly about his theft and manipulation. I testified about finding my sister, about the documents he'd withheld, about the threats we'd received. Pemberton's lawyer tried to paint us as opportunists, as family members manipulating a sick woman. But Marie's own lawyer produced her meticulously documented files, months of evidence showing her clear intent and decision-making, even as her disease progressed. The judge ruled in our favor. Pemberton was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to repay every penny he'd stolen. But the bigger victory came 3 weeks later. The state attorney general announced a formal investigation into the St. Catherine's Hospital adoption ring. 5 people were indicted, including 2 judges who'd signed the fraudulent adoption papers. The case made national news. Dozens more families came forward with similar stories. Marie and I were invited to testify before a state commission. We sat side by side, 2 elderly women who looked so alike that the commissioners kept getting us confused, and told our story. About being stolen, about living 64 years apart, about finding each other despite every obstacle. "What do you want from this commission?" one commissioner asked. I looked at Marie. She nodded for me to speak. "Justice for our mother, who spent her life grieving children who weren't dead. Accountability for the people who built fortunes on stolen babies. And a promise, a legally binding promise, that this can never happen again. That no family will be torn apart by greed and lies the way ours was." The commission recommended sweeping reforms to adoption procedures, mandatory DNA databases for separated siblings, and a victim compensation fund. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't undo 64 years of loss, but it was something. In February, Marie's condition worsened. The lucid days became rare, precious gems scattered among weeks of confusion. I moved to Montreal permanently, taking over as her full-time caregiver and power of attorney. Derek visited regularly. We'd settled into an uneasy peace. I would never fully trust him again, but I could see he genuinely loved Marie. The inheritance no longer mattered to him as much. Or perhaps it did, and he'd just learned to be more honest about it. Either way, we managed. One evening in late March, Marie had a moment of perfect clarity. We were sitting in her apartment, watching the sun set over Montreal. "Loretta," she said, her voice strong and certain, "I'm here. I want you to know something. These past months, having you here, knowing you, loving you, they've been the best of my life. Even with the disease taking me piece by piece, even with all the pain of learning the truth, I wouldn't trade these months for anything." "Neither would I whispered, taking her hand. "I'm scared of forgetting you, of having a day when I wake up and you're a stranger again. Then I'll introduce myself. Every day if I have to. I'll tell you you're my sister, my twin, my other half. And eventually, some part of you will remember. Even if your mind forgets, your heart will know." She smiled, tears running down her face. "Promise me something? Anything. When I'm gone, when this disease finally takes the last of me, use the money the way we planned. Find the other stolen children. Help them find each other. Make sure Mary is cared for until the end. And Derek," she paused, "make sure he's okay too. He's flawed, but he's family, and family takes care of family." "I promise." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat that way until the last light faded from the sky. Marie died on a Tuesday in June, peacefully in her sleep, with me holding her hand. She was 64 years old, the same age as the years we'd spent apart. I inherited the bulk of her estate, as she'd planned. Derek received a generous trust fund, enough to secure his future without making him wealthy enough to be careless. The rest went into the foundation we'd established together, the Sullivan-Hanson Foundation for Adoption, Truth, and Family Reunion. At Marie's funeral, Mary attended, one of her rare lucid days. She sat beside me in the front pew, holding my hand, understanding that she'd lost a daughter she'd barely had time to know. "You'll take care of things," she said. It wasn't a question. "I will, Mama," and I have. In the 3 years since Marie's death, the foundation has reunited 47 families separated by the adoption ring. We've funded legal challenges that resulted in 12 convictions of people involved in the scheme. We've established support groups, DNA databases, and advocacy programs. Derek works for the foundation now, head of legal affairs. He's good at it, passionate even. Perhaps Marie's death taught him something about what really matters. Or perhaps he simply found a way to channel his ambition into something meaningful. I don't psychoanalyze it too much anymore. I visit Mary every week. She rarely remembers who I am now. The dementia has progressed too far. But I sit with her anyway, holding her hand, telling her stories about her daughters. Sometimes, just for a moment, recognition flickers in her eyes. I'm 67 now. My hair is completely white. My hands are marked with age spots. And I move slower than I used to. But I've never felt more powerful, because I learned something through all of this. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't obsolescence. The years I've lived, the pain I've survived, the wisdom I've accumulated, these are weapons more potent than youth or strength or money. I outmaneuvered Pemberton not through force, but through patience and intelligence. I navigated my son's deception not through confrontation, but through strategic revelation. I honored Marie's legacy not through grand gestures, but through steady, determined action. They underestimated me. Pemberton, the people who sent those threatening texts, even Derek in his own way. They saw an elderly woman and assumed she could be controlled, dismissed, frightened into silence. They were wrong. Last week, I received a letter from a woman in Oregon. Her name is Patricia, and she's 62 years old. She'd just discovered through DNA testing that she has a twin brother in Maine. They were separated at birth through the same adoption ring that took Marie and me from our mother. I don't know where to start, she wrote. I don't know how to find him, how to make sense of any of this. Can you help? I sat in Marie's apartment, mine now, though I still think of it as hers, and wrote back. Yes, I told her. We can help. That's what we do. Because this is what 67 years of life has taught me. You can't change the past, but you can refuse to let it define your future. You can't undo injustice, but you can fight like hell to prevent it from happening again. You can't restore lost years, but you can make the remaining ones count. I spent 64 years not knowing I had a sister. I spent 6 months knowing her. It wasn't enough time. It would never have been enough time. But we made it matter. Every family we reunite, every truth we uncover, every person we help, it's for Marie, for Mary, for all the stolen children and grieving mothers who deserved better. I'm not a young woman anymore. My energy isn't limitless. My time isn't infinite. But I'm not done yet. Not by a long shot. Because the greatest power I have isn't in my youth or my strength. It's in my refusal to be silent. My refusal to give up. My refusal to let the powerful and corrupt win simply because they think an elderly woman can't stop them. They thought I was weak. They learned otherwise. And every day, in Marie's memory, I continue to prove them wrong. This is my legacy now. Not money, not property, not even the years I spent as a nurse saving lives. This, fighting for truth, for family, for justice, this is what I was always meant to do. I just needed 64 years, a twin sister I never knew I had, and a son's complicated betrayal to finally find my purpose. Better late than never. Better imperfect than incomplete. Better wise than young. I am Loretta Rose Collins, 67 years old, sister of Marie Lawson, daughter of Mary Sullivan, mother of Derek Collins. And I am just getting started.